All right, good evening. This is a really quick demo. So I've actually been working on this tool for a while. The original plan was going to be part of OS 7 just because a lot of what's coming in OS 7 has so much more customization, particularly related to the prop file, but just your config in general. So that's kind of where this started from. But as I was building it, I realized actually I'll start with OS 6, get it tested, make sure, prove it out, and then we'll obviously expand on it for OS 7. Um, and in doing so, I'm at a good point now where I think people can test it. Now, I've only done some really light testing on this because it's actually taken a long time to put together. So this is completely an alpha test. So for anybody who's wants to update a config, wants to build a config, wants to be able to just help out with testing, this tool is available. But if you have any issues, right at the top here, there's a link that's going to take you to the Crucible thread. I need you to post them there because this is initial testing. So this is I'm sure there's going to be some bugs. I'm sure there'll be some hiccups, some glitches. So that is to be expected with alpha testing. But the more eyes we can get on it, the faster we can debug it and figure it out. So as the name of the video and the name of this page is, this is a config helper. So it's designed to make it easier for you to set up your config. What I've seen, going back even before OS 6, but particularly with OS 6, is in a lot of cases, people aren't really comfortable with the config file. They don't understand what all of it means. In some cases, people see something online and they copy it from a different location, from a sample, but they don't quite understand what it's doing, what it's meant to do, or how to use it. So that was kind of the starting point. But then it kind of snowballed to actually beyond just doing defines and setting up the prop file to actually become a full config. Now, this again is a helper. So the assumption going in is that you have a config of some kind from your installer, or you've made one if you're doing your own installation, that you've reviewed either the configurator tools that Frederick has for the various boards, or you've referred to the manual, etc. So there's going to be a few pieces of this that you do have to have externally. Now you can develop them yourself if you don't have a config, but that's a little bit more in depth than what I'm going to go into. So right now I'm going to do a real quick run through of the basics of this, but then really it's going to be users testing it that's going to help me get this kind of fine-tuned and debugged. This is meant to work top down. So you're meant to go from the very top, fill everything out that's required until you get to the very bottom to generate a config. If you skip around, you may miss things that are required and or important. And config files can be really simple, really basic, or they can get really complex really quickly. So that's why I've made it kind of a read it straight top to bottom list, just so that we have everything covered. There is logic built in here. So as you make selections of different options, different defines, different choices, you're going to have more options show up or hide for things that work together, things that are required, for things that don't work together. It's going to do all that updating for you to make that easier, particularly with defines. So particularly OS 5, OS 6, there's a lot of defines introduced. And I think still even some people who use ProffieBoard all the time aren't actually fully aware of all of the defines, or they may not know what the defines actually do. So that's what I wanted this tool to be able to help with. The order of this tool is set up purposely, so it's not going to match perfectly to the order of your config if you did get one from an installer, but I try to explain everything as well in this. So there's a lot of writing, just read through it. But you're going to choose your board version. The current version is 2.2. This is printed usually on your board, so if you don't have access to the board, the 2.2 is what's out there. The 3.6 I put in here more as a placeholder. It hasn't actually been released. There's only a few people who have them. You're going to see it in the list, but your option is to choose the 2.2 unless you have an older board. If you have the 1.5 or if you have the Teensy Saber, you would select those. Then the number of blades. So this is the number of blades that have been set up by your installer that you set up. This is the numerical value that's found at the top. So if you have 3 blades, 4 blades, etc., you're going to want to put this in place. Now, the way this tool works is it's looking for the number of blades before you get to the presets, which are lower down. If you go to change the number of blades at any point, it's going to clear the preset section because it has to reconfigure how the presets are supposed to work. So let's say we have 2 blades. So again, you're going to want to know about your saber and or hopefully have an existing config. If you have the blade detect pin set up, you can check this. So all of these options you see with checkboxes, you're going to check them or not if you have them, if you want to enable them, etc. So if you have a blade detect pin on your saber, you're going to check this. And if for some reason it's any of the other blade pins, or if it's set to 0, and you would tell that by looking at your config, you would be able to set that there. I don't have that set up. If you have shared power pins, again, this is something your installer would have set up. What this means is that you have different LEDs running off of or different blades running off of the same LED pads. So one of them may be turned on while the other one's off. So the shared power pins allows for that to happen. And then all these others we're going to see. Now, this is the piece that right now is just meant to be a copy and paste. So I started down the path of trying to get a blade config builder. The problem is there's so many possibilities with how many number of blades you can have them, where you wire them, how you wire them, what types they are, as well as subblade, subblade reverse, subblade with stride. It just snowballed way too quickly. So if you're going to if you have a config already, what we're going to do is we're looking for the blade config section, and that's going to be at the very bottom of your config file. So if you have a config from your installer that you've made already, what the blade config is essentially it's just telling the board what type of a blade you have, how it's wired, how it's expected to work, and how many of them there are. And for to make the tool a little simpler, particularly for people who aren't really familiar with config file, basically you're looking for this entire section. So you're going to grab from the blade config blades all the way down to this end if. That end if is actually part of something else, but I figured to make it easier for how a lot of configs are already written, this would do it. So you're going to grab this. Now, you may have other blade configs in there. You may have, if you have the blade detect, you may have no blade. You may have different resistor values. So it could be larger or smaller depending on the number of blades and how your installer set it up. But what we're looking for is all of the text starting at blade config all the way down to that end if. You're going to grab that and you're going to copy it. All right. And you can always save a copy of your config file, but then we're going to go up here. And if you click paste from clipboard, it's going to paste that information in. This tool does not check this information. It can't. So as long as you put that piece of information in that's valid, that's been checked by your installer, that you've checked and set up, this won't be a problem. If you are first time setting up your config and it doesn't work, you're going to want to do normal troubleshooting for that because there's just way too many possibilities for this tool to be able to handle them. And that's all written out here. If you need to generate a tool, so say you are just building a saber, you want to start with this, these are Frederick's different configurator tools for various boards, or you can refer to the manual. You're going to want to use those. And again, you want to generate that exact code, this exact group here for your blades. And this one here particularly shows the 2 blades that I already set up top. The other piece is, again, this tool is just going to take this verbatim. So I have to know how many blades I have, and that is normally also found in your config if you have one already, and that is defined at the top here. So the number of blades. So this is where that comes from, and that's where that comes into play. All right, so I've set that stuff up. And then your number of buttons. So if you have different number of buttons, you can have 1, 2, or 3 button. If, say, your power button is on one side of the saber, your aux button's on another, and you want to flip them, this tool will actually let you flip the location of those buttons. Now, this has to have been wired that way. So, I'm sorry, if you have a 2-button saber, this would work okay. But if you have a 2-button saber, you wouldn't be able to select aux 2 because it's not wired. But you can toggle back and forth to what your particular installer has done. That is also found in your config file. And that's going to be down here at the bottom. But you don't need to copy this one. The tool will let you do that. So the idea being this piece here, this middle piece is what tells it what actual pad on the board is triggering that button. So if you need to flip them, that's what that tool is doing. This number here you don't have to change. And then now there's going to be a bunch of other settings and choices and everything. And you're just going to run through them, just read through all of this. There's actually so much, I'm not going to read through it all, but you're going to set all of this here. Read through everything. Anything you need to activate, you'll check a box. Anything you want to turn off, uncheck a box. If you uncheck a box and there's a value, the value is not used. So like the filter cutoff, the filter order, until I check this box, this value doesn't do anything. You can set your clash threshold. You can go through. I have the starting point for what most people would want to use, particularly with my prop already checked off, but you can choose to check and uncheck whatever boxes you want. This tool is built around my prop file. That's kind of the reason I built it, was to support both the OS 6 but also OS 7, because OS 7 is going to have so much more customization in it. My prop needed this kind of support tool to really give everybody an opportunity to get the most out of it. But so all the features, anything that you want, is all covered here. If you want the edit mode menu, you would check this. If you don't, you don't. So what defines do is they basically either enable or disable various features, various controls, or other things in the prop file. That's what you're controlling here. So you're going through. If you choose to just have the most basic setup, you can remove my prop. Removing my prop, though, will shrink down the available options, since most of the OS 6 features are part of my prop. But this is what you would then have the option to control here. But if you choose my prop, you're going to see there's way more that you can do. And then you're just going to want to read through all of these. I've tried to explain all of them as much as possible. So just read through them, check off what you want, what you don't. In certain cases, there's certain setups required. So dual mode sound and real class sound have wiki documentation on how to set up your fonts to work with those. But if you want to activate them, if you want to activate any of these other features, everything is all in here. This will activate everything via defines in your config. There's modifications to the controls. There's all the battle mode and gesture capabilities. So if you want to change how battle mode works, change your delay, change your detect. If you wanted to activate gestures or deactivate gestures, it's all in here. So you could choose the various options and have them run that way. And then there's a bunch of other capabilities here. If you do have certain things like an OLED or a Bluetooth, you're going to want to activate them here. And again, you would just go through and check what you want. It's going to open or close the various selections that are necessary. But once you've finished all this top section, turning everything on that you want or off that you want, that's when you're going to move to your actual preset. And the preset tool, as I mentioned at the very start, you have to set that blade config up first and the number of blades at the very top. If you go back and change those, this section will wipe itself out. But you can add a preset, and you can add as many presets as you want. Now, this is not checking for memory. So if you add 20, 30 presets, but they're all really big styles, and you go to upload it, you are going to overflow the flash, which means you have too many presets, so you'd want to pare back on that. This is just loading some placeholders. The font name has to be exact spelling and case as the folder on your SD card for that font. The track has to be the exact location of that track.wave. If you don't want a track on a preset, you can just delete this. Track is the only one that's an option. And then because I have two blades, I have two blade styles. Now, how it's designed to work is you can either use my library or you can build an editor. And you're going to open this up, and it's going to open a new window, and you can go through the library, build whatever style you want. You can set up whatever you want in terms of all the options, just like normal. So, and again, thousands upon thousands of possible combinations. Build the style you want, and then all you're going to do is click Get Style Code. You're going to agree the first time. It's putting it in your clipboard. So that style is now in my clipboard, and I can just go right back here, and I want to put that on blade 1. I'm going to paste it. Good to go. Now, say in my case, blade 2, actually, let's add another preset while we're at it. And I'm going to change this to be my, we'll call this an Anic, and I forget my name on my font, but this has to match. And then I'm going to leave this for now. Now I have an accent as my second blade, and this is based on the order of your blade config. So at the top here, you can open this box up if you have a really long one. So the second blade, so this is the first blade listed. That's my main blade. You don't have to know this, but this is kind of explaining how it works. And then the second blade, as defined, is actually just an accent. It's just 6 pixels. So what I want to do, and this is kind of a good opportunity to cover this as well. I can add other presets. On my accent pixels, that's a tongue twister, I'm going to build a combo style. So I'm going to choose this here, but I'm going to build a bunch of, you could build out a bunch of options. So if I go in here and do this, I can actually choose to add multiple options. And all this does is it lets me simplify to have one style that gets used over and over again, and then using either ProffieOS Workbench or Edit Mode, I would be able to change how this runs. And basically, I'm just going to build it real quick. But the idea being now, by putting this together, you'll see that this particular one style for an accent actually has 20 unique combinations. So, and you could build out even more than that. But so I'm going to get the style code for this. And what I want to do is to have more room for primary styles or main blade styles. I'm going to paste that here, and I'm going to paste it here. And actually, let's add a third preset. I'm going to paste it here. And what that does is by using the same code for those accents on each preset, it actually reduces the memory to almost none. And that allows me to have more complex main blade styles, because a lot of times accents don't need to do a lot. So you can build a combo style in the library. And then if I wanted to change like the speed of the pulse, or there was a bunch of options in there, which are actually listed, I would just use edit mode or ProffieOS Workbench to make those selections. And that's kind of the concept there. But so now for my second font, I'm going to go build a new style. And I'm jumping through the library really quickly on purpose, but I can choose, and let's do a different color. We'll do a green. And then again, I'm not making a bunch of selections, but I'm going to do get style for this. This is going to be my main blade style for my second font. And the fonts start at 0, so the second font is actually font 1. So I'm going to put that there, and then I have a third, or font 2. Preset 2 is going to be my, I'll pick one more style for it. And you can build out as many as you want. It depends entirely on how complex your blade styles are. But you can typically, if you're building out a library, they're pretty efficient. And if you're using option styles, you can actually fit more. Let's go choose one of these guys. We'll do a red on this. Get style. And every time you click get style, it puts it in your clipboard, and that just lets you paste it here. All right. And then now I've spent a long time on this. Anybody who wants to help me out by becoming a patron, it's very much appreciated. But now I'm at the point where I can actually generate my config. So I can choose to, if you have a config and you want to just do pieces of it, like particularly presets, if you want to just generate that preset code, you can. So this will let you generate the top section, which is all those defines and the prop information. You can generate presets, which is that preset section, or you can generate that config for buttons, which just as a nice to have. The blades, you have to have it already done, so that's why I'm not generating it, because you provide that externally. But so we'll click generate full config, and now this will combine all of your options you've made above, add all your defines, it adds everything in the syntax that's required, and builds out your entire config for you. And now I can just click copy config, and it's going to put that whole new config into my clipboard, and I can go into a new config file here and paste it. And like I said, this is an alpha test. So if you do all this and you go to upload your config on Arduino and you get an error message, just let us know. Post it on the Crucible link, which again is found at the very top right here. This report any issues link. You're going to go into that thread, post what the issue, post the error message. You can post the config file that it generated. You can use Pastebin to do that. And that'll help me to debug anything that's going on, because this is a brand new tool and there is a lot going on in it. So there's definitely chances that I have some bugs and some typos and some bad code somewhere. But so this is kind of the early intro. Once we get kind of beat up and test it out and I get a few more features added, we'll move it to beta, and then once it's good to go, we'll give it the green light for everybody to really take use of. As I said, the OS 7 version is actually going to have a ton more customization built into it, but this will be kind of a good help for anybody moving to OS 6 or who needs a new config for OS 6. And you can help me by testing it. If you upload one and it works perfectly fine, that's great. You can let me know in the thread, or you can just go and enjoy using it. What I'm looking for mostly is anything that pops up, any errors, any bugs, anything that doesn't generate correctly. And it could be either the site itself or when you go to upload in Arduino, because there is a lot going on with how this is all assembling all the options. So definitely a ton more to come, but go and play with it, and let me know if you find anything, and let me know what you think. So thanks a lot, everybody. Ton more stuff coming. I know we've been quiet for a while. Frederick's been super busy. There is so much coming in OS 7 that we're trying to get it all put together and all worked out. definitely you have not seen the last of new stuff. So hope you enjoy.